As you see here, Sean, I have my jump boots in case I have to jump in some places. Not all Santas are airborne qualified, though. That's the difference.
Welcome, everyone, to a special holiday episode of the Scuttlebutt. My name is Sean Hall, the host of this podcast, and we invited Santa to come on and join us and tell us a bit about the traditions of Santa in the military. He's taking a break from his very busy toy building and packing schedule, whatever Santa does up there at the North Pole, to tell us about that tradition. And we also have a separate conversation with Air Force veteran Ben Wright about the Operation Christmas Drop that takes place in the South China Sea. This year marks the 70th anniversary. It's very interesting, the Christmas Drop. It involves airmen from the 36th Wing, 515th Air Mobility Operations Wing, and 374th Airlift Wing. It got its start back in 1952 when a B-29 air crew flying over the island of Kopinyamorangi, 3,500 miles southwest of Hawaii, saw islanders waving at them. And according to the PACAF release, the crew dropped supplies attached to a parachute to them, starting an annual tradition. So this has taken place for 70 years. Ben Wright is going to come on and talk to us about this Christmas drop and why it's so important. So 2 really interesting conversations for you for the holidays. We hope that you enjoy. Thanks for joining us, and be sure to like, share, subscribe, and ring the bell on YouTube as always. And you can reach out to me at Sean, SHAUN, at veteransbreakfastclub.org. We hope that you have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We're going to be back with new episodes of the Scuttlebutt in the new year, and we have a great season lined up. So please join us as we continue on with this really interesting and I think really educational podcast. And joining us now is Air Force veteran Ben Wright. For those of you who are fans of the Scuttlebutt, you may recognize Ben from our episode talking about Star Wars Canyon. And if you don't know about that, please go to YouTube and look that up. It's an incredible video of fighter pilots shooting a canyon over in the western part of the States, down into a canyon and flying around it. I had to have Ben on to talk about that because it was amazing. But to talk more holiday specific material today, Ben, you were a C-130 pilot, and I thought I'd bring you on to chat with us about what the Christmas drop is. And it's the 70th anniversary of this Christmas drop that happens over in, is it the West China, the South China Sea?
Well, actually, it's east of there. It's actually the Western Pacific Ocean. So the group of islands, which is the Federated States of Micronesia and the Republic of Palau, are south of Guam, east of the southern Philippines, and north of Papua New Guinea. Yeah, there you are sharing a picture of where it is. So you'd see the Marshall Islands to the northeast. The Marianas include Guam, Saipan, and Tinian. And then what you're showing, the Federated States of Micronesia, is a group of about 600 islands that are archipelago in the Pacific. So basically, it's a lot of volcanic mountains with their peaks sticking up out of the ocean. Some of them are atolls that are coral that goes around the rim of a volcano. In the Federated States of Micronesia, we had one program about Ulithi atoll, and all of the Navy ships were there. In fact, that's where a Kai-10, which is a kamikaze style submarine, sank an oil tanker there.
Oh yeah, so, this is through our VBC, like our online Zoom events. For those of you who have only heard the Scuttlebutt, our podcast, VBC is our sort of our parent company, nonprofit, Western PA. We do Zoom programs every week, and we talked about this atoll and the Kai-10. Also, another great, we're giving them great references here to go onto YouTube and look up these old episodes that we've done through VBC and the Scuttlebutt. But go ahead, Ben, thanks.
Sure. And there's an interesting history of these islands. Spain was the first one to inhabit all these in the 17th century. Then after the Spanish-American War, at the end of the 19th century, they were actually sold to Germany and were taken over by Germany. And then, of course, the Japanese came and inhabited all of them. So they became of great interest to the U.S. As we worked our way through the Pacific island hopping to be able to take care of Imperial Japan at that time. And there were some very fierce battles that were fought in this area, particularly on Angar, Peleliu, and the Ulithi Atoll for the U.S. to take control of them. Then after World War II, they all became U.S. trust territories. So the U.S. has felt a great responsibility for caring for the people in Micronesia and Palau for a number of years. Now in the 90s, they did become independent nations. So they're now the Federated States of Micronesia and the Republic of Palau.
And these are very isolated places. A lot of these people may have never left the island or may never will leave the island.
That's true. And out of the about 1,100 islands we're talking about here, and of course, not all of them are inhabited, but there's like 6 airports in there. So there's like 6 different runways you can fly out of. So obviously, most of the transportation is by sea, by boat. And the people that live out there are generally very poor. So they live off of their farms, what they can grow in their gardens, and a lot of fishing and those sorts of things to make a living. They've been blessed during a pandemic that they've been able to keep, the COVID-19 from coming to visit them because of their isolation. But otherwise, they're pretty independent and out there on their own. And because of the U.S. affinity for them, they started these Christmas drops. So for the children and people in Micronesia and Palau, Santa Claus doesn't have a sleigh and reindeer. He has a 4-engine turboprop C-130s that drop gifts to them. And so
like the one behind you, right? Like the one in your one in your picture.
The one behind me is a mass CDS drop. They were probably only dropping, 1 or 2 bundles at a time on the islands. Yeah. And this particular year, the U.S. was also doing training because these could be valuable training and airdrops with the Koreans and the Japanese. So actually, all 3 nations were involved in the drops with the U.S. doing the bulk of them. So they delivered some 55,000 pounds to 55 of these 1,100 islands. And each one of them, you have to figure the community air release point. You have to make sure the bundles land not on top of somebody's house, but somebody be safely recovered. So there's good training and work for the air crews as well as the benefit for the people.
Can I interrupt you real quick? Can you give us an idea of how much 55,000 pounds of stuff is? Like, how much would that cover in a football field?
Well, that's 25 tons of stuff. I mean, it's quite a bit.
Yeah.
And mostly it's of course some presents for the kids, but there's fishing gear and there's rice and food, clothing items, the kinds of things that are useful and helpful to the people and the children on the islands. Now, these are not paid for by the government. You can actually donate to the Christmas drop. You can go onto a website and donate to it. But the University of Guam has a lot to do with collecting the goods and determining the needs of the people and what's airdropped. And of course, there's a lot of labor involved because of the chutes and rigging the loads and the flying and the flight planning and preparation for the flights. And so they did these the first week of December for the 70th anniversary of when the first ones were dropped. So it's an exciting mission. I never got to do these particular airdrops. I have flown into 3 of the islands in the Federated States of Micronesia. I've flown into Yap and Palau, or Ponape rather, and in the Republic of Palau, I've flown into Angar. But I've flown by a lot of these other island nations that we're talking about. So there's Palau, and then northeast of that is Micronesia. And you can see where it's situated east of the southern Philippines of island of Mindanao and the southern Philippines and north of Papua New Guinea.
Technically, doing an airdrop, like you said, you don't want to drop these supplies on someone's house. It's supposed to be Christmas, but how do you pull a maneuver like this off? When you're going, how many miles per hour in a plane? What's your height? And when do you know, okay, I'm going to drop this and it's going to land exactly on the beach where I need it to?
Well, for those kinds of drops, they'd be dropping probably from 1,000 feet above the ground. Mm-hmm. And you do a slowdown before you drop. So for equipment, they're probably at 125 or 130 knots airspeed. And you can tell with a Doppler radar in the aircraft what the altitude winds are. And then if you know what the winds are on the surface, and then you figure based on the weight of the load and the type of parachute that's on it, its rate of descent and the winds, you come up with a computed air release point. So in other words, you position the aircraft upwind of where you want the load to land, and you compute where to release it so that it falls in place. So you can see why this would be good training for the crews, and they would have to do a certain amount of survey information, probably mostly done by satellite or aircraft, of what's on the ground and coordinating with the local officials to what they want to use for a drop zone as to where they want to drop it.
Did you ever talk to a pilot who had taken part in Operation Christmas Drop?
No, not in this particular one. Of course, I've done airdrops myself, not these particular ones. But the time I was in Southeast Asia with the units that do this now, our focus was Vietnam, even though during that same time frame I did go to these islands for supporting at that time U.S. Coast Guard, who's not there anymore, and also community support in the U.S. trust territories.
How do you, I'm sure you feel great about it, but I'm interested in your opinion of what Operation Christmas Drop is and why it's so important to the military and, the Air Force.
Well, I think it's good for the U.S., because we continue to want to help the people that live there, many in great poverty and in great need with limited logistics capability. It's good training for the militaries involved. It's good also cooperative for international forces, and especially this year, the Koreans and the Japanese were involved as well as the Americans. So it's good to work together. We might have to work together for other purposes in doing that. And it's all good training and goodwill at Christmas time.
Yeah, the airforcemag.com article, which we'll have here in the description, went on to have a quote from, and I hope I'm pronouncing his last name correctly, Larry Regatal. He was a child on one of these islands, and he was quoted as saying about the Operation Christmas Drop, he says, "I was curious where the toys were coming from, much less being fascinated with the Air Force guys standing in the C-130 and tossing down those boxes." He went on to say, "I wanted to find out where they came from. I wanted to know what the source was." And I'm sure as a kid on one of these sort of remote islands where they don't speak English, they see a plane fly overhead that drops a box and filled with toys and, supplies and things. And, I'm sure they're very grateful for the supplies that we are able to provide. But I could imagine that this very much seems very much like Santa just shows up. There's a box of stuff for you.
Sure. Santa in a 4-engine turboprop C-130.
Exactly. And Ben, I know that you're going to be joining us in the new year for a normal, regular episode of the Scuttlebutt. Do you want to give us a brief preview, a promo for what that episode will be about?
Well, we're going to do one on actually the Epiphany, January the 6th. We're going to record with Michael Wertsmith, who does ministry to homeless people in Pittsburgh. And most of whom, or about 40% of whom, are veterans. He has a particular heart for veterans and taking care of them and getting them in a life-sustaining situation. And then we're also going to have Eric Fenton, who was active duty Air Force chaplain for over 20 years. Went to places like Diego Garcia and all over the place with people who are supporting wartime operations and the things he was able to do to minister to people while they are under the stress of combat operations and normal life in the military.
Awesome. I can't wait to hear these stories because I think for someone who may not know anything about the military, it might be a little odd to hear like, oh, wait, there's ministers in the military and what do they do and what's their job? And is this part of it, like the service? Like, I think it's a very intriguing subject, and I'm very interested to have those guests on as well as yourself to hear more of your stories and what drove you to follow this path.
Sure. Well, I'm looking forward to it as well.
Wonderful. Well, we will see you in the new year. And thank you again for joining us for the special Christmas episode of the Scuttlebutt. Happy New Year,
You
everyone.
bet. Yeah. Blessed New Year to you as well.
Santa, I am so excited that you were able to take some time out of your busy schedule to join me on the Scuttlebutt. I figured, I wanted to have you on as a special guest, of course, because it's the holidays, but also to talk to us a bit about what's the correlation between Santa and the military.
Well, the correlation is, everybody believes every little kid who grew up, every soldier one time was a little boy or girl who grew up and always believed in Santa. Mm-hmm. And everyone believes in Santa, especially as you get older, because we go back to our childhood. So Santa is there, but boys and girls understand Christmas is for boys and girls with Santa. Santa loves the boys and girls. But through the military, of course, military has always enjoyed helping people, especially kids. And I started this many, many years ago. I played Santa when my kids were young. I got this suit. This suit was handmade by a Mrs. Claus over 70 years ago. Her husband was a policeman. Mm-hmm. As he got older, unfortunately, Santas do get old and they can no longer do their duty. So they stepped down, and he gave it to my brother-in-law, who is also a policeman, mm-hmm. and he gave it to me. So this has been going on for well over 70 years. So I started doing it when my kids were young. My brother-in-law would do it for me. Mm-hmm. I would do it for his kids, and we did it for all our nieces and nephews and things like that.
And then it sort of became outside of the family.
It became a tradition.
Yeah.
I had a friend. We've had people contact us. Santa's foray into doing this. Santa only did it for family and friends. Mm-hmm. But I did get a call from a gentleman who ran 5 nursing homes. And wow. He asked me if I would do it. And he said he did it, but they all know who he was. So I did it. And I have to tell you, of all the experiences, one of my favorites, because these older people, some of them have dementia. As they get older, they go back to their childhood. Mm. And when they see Santa, especially the women, they start to cry. Santa, I've been a good girl. All I want for Christmas is my health. Mm-hmm. They go on and they have tears in their eyes. That was a special moment. The other one, I did Children's Hospital. A nurse at Children's Hospital called me, asked me if I would come down. Of course, they have Santas down there, but one of the nurses' husbands at 31 passed away. He was a veteran and left 2 young children. One of them was an infant. So they wanted to do a fundraiser, and they were doing pictures. Yeah. With families in Santa, would Santa come down? And that was one of my favorites, because not only do we raise money for them, we've been doing it for up until last year, we did it every year, just as people would come and get photos with Santa. So, mm-hmm. Santa is part of the time of year. Mm-hmm. So I love doing it. I love doing it for the military. We collected a lot of toys. We worked with Toys for Tots. Probably about 25 years ago, we started doing Toys for Tots, having groups of people bringing toys. The Veterans Club on Wednesday at Grove Farm mm-hmm. did about $1,000 in toys. So
wow!
I sent your director, my little friend, little Todd DiPastino, has grown up to be a very, very, very wonderful person, helping vets as well as people. He's terrific. And Sean, I love Veterans Breakfast Club. I said that yesterday when I was there for a brief time. Santa will do anything for Veterans Breakfast Club because two things that Santa loves. One of them is kids, little boys and girls, and the other one's veterans. They're very special.
So where can people donate toys now?
Well, it's getting a little late. Next year we'll do it again. You know, because what we're going to do is we're going to get the word out a little better next year. Santa has been doing this for a while, and he has his groups. That's why he's got this big belly. He has a little luncheon tomorrow with guys.
Yeah.
So we will get the word out. It's getting kind of late because the beauty of our foundation work, it goes to Urban Impact Foundation. And these folks work with ministries within the community, and they know the kids. So they know what little Sean needs or would like specifically. So if Sean's a really aggressive young man wants to play sports, they're not going to give him a doll or whatever, or a book. So that's the beauty of it. So they're
pairing the right toy, like pair the right toy with the right kid.
I have tomorrow, Saturday, we'll finish it up and give them the toys because I have to go through them. And so if they have any extras, we get a little extras. They give someone on their birthday. They know when their birthdays are, which is pretty special.
Yeah.
A young person doesn't get anything. What I found, and especially with veterans and friends who come, they become very generous as they get older because their kids and their grandkids get toys and they just but watching someone not get a toy for Christmas is very, very difficult. Military people go out of their way to help kids. You go back and look through World War I and II, they shared candy, they shared whatever they had with kids.
And I know of soldiers who were doing that even during the War on Terror, wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. Yeah.
The soldiers love kids, and they want to protect kids, but they also want to make them happy. So anything a person can do, my job is to make everybody happy. It's a lot easier when you go ho, ho, ho. And since we're going to digress a little bit, I have my work gloves on today. I got to get on to tell the Steelers how to play. But
yeah, I noticed that Santa's
Joe Green, and he said, they're really bad. You got to get on and straighten them out. So
please do. Yeah, it's great to know that Santa's a Steelers fan.
You know, it's a sport. Okay, so it is fun. But I want to thank everyone, especially the Veterans Breakfast Club, for supporting not only Santa's Drive, but also the Veterans Breakfast Club, because it is a tremendous veterans organization. And what they do at vets is terrific.
And let's talk to the man behind the beard here for a minute. Rick Weber, you're an Army veteran, is that correct?
That's correct.
What years did you serve?
I served 3.5. I was drafted. Lo and behold, become drafted. So, well, once I entered the Army, my wife says, I can't believe you still like, and I said, no, I never liked the Army, but I like the people who are in it.
Yeah.
And so Todd asked questions, you know, what did you do? How was Christmas like in Vietnam? And I shared this story with him. As Santa's best gift for Christmas, and if people ask, if I ask you, Sean, what was your best gift you ever received for Christmas?
Probably like a PlayStation 3. That was pretty exciting.
Well, I thought long and hard, and then it came real easy for me. In 1970, I was a young lieutenant, been married a little over a year, and I was in Vietnam. And my captain said, I was with the 25th Infantry Unit at the time. And they were offering, because morale was so bad, Christmas, and we weren't, you know, long story short, they not real happy. So they decided that this was the big brass, decided they were going to send troops home for Christmas. So that was a big headline, troops going home for Christmas. But they didn't tell you it was only 3 plane loads. And there was some specifics on that. But my captain, great guy, said, Weber, you're gonna steal a Jeep and we're gonna go to Saigon and get tickets. Yes, without orders. So
wow.
Yeah, wow is right. Well, long story short, he had to cojones to pull it off. First day they had a lottery. They were selling 220 tickets a day. They only had 3 planes. You had to pay for the ticket out of your own money. You did not need to leave. They'd give you the leave. First day, we did not do very well, but my captain was very insistent. So he went up to the front of the line and talked to the sergeant and said, I'm a captain. I'm an infantry captain and I have a weapon. I will get a ticket. So needless to say, as his driver, because officers aren't allowed to drive Jeeps.
Yeah.
This is just his driver, but we did get tickets and we did go home for Christmas. So we left on Christmas Eve, left Vietnam on Christmas Eve, got home Christmas Day. Well, got into San Francisco at 12:30 at night, took the red eye of New York and got home around 10:30.
Oh,
best Christmas ever.
Yeah, you're probably hurting a little bit, but you were young at that point, so you could deal with that.
Well, I was very concerned about my guys.
Yeah.
Because I was going home and they were staying there. But because they didn't have an officer, they didn't have to go back to the field till I came back. As you see here, Sean, I have my jump boots in case I have to jump in some places.
Yeah.
Not all Santas are airborne qualified. That's the difference. Some of them are smart enough to stay in the sleigh, but there's some of us that just, want to challenge. But unfortunately, in this part of the country, I don't believe, or most of the country, the United States is going to have very little snow.
Yeah, so it looks like it's not going to be a white Christmas this year.
It's going to be but Christmas is still Christmas. And the one place Christmas is, and always will be, is in people's hearts.
Well said, well put. Thank you, Santa, for coming on.
Oh, my honor. It's a joy. I will do this. I have to find someone, Sean, to take over the duties as this Santa reclines in age and ability to do this. But it is a joy because you can see back. When you can see people, their eyes start to moisten, and they go back and think of their childhood. Yeah, what they remember and what Santa meant, through their parents and that. That's the real thing, because the generosity of the veterans have been terrific, because they understand what the meaning of Christmas is. So for everyone, Merry Christmas, but more importantly, gentlemen, healthy 2022.
That's right.
For that, I salute you. Merry Christmas.